I liked Roddenberry's original plan for Geordi, but I'm glad Star Trek: The Next Generation changed LaForge's role. When Star Trek: The Next Generation premiered in 1987, almost everything about it felt like a careful negotiation between Gene Roddenberry's original vision and the practical realities of making a weekly science fiction series for a new era. Some of those negotiations were obvious: tone, pacing, the absence of interpersonal conflict in the early seasons. Others were quieter, tucked into character concepts that evolved as the show found its footing. Few examples illustrate this better than Geordi LaForge. Roddenberry's original plan for Geordi was bold, idealistic, and very much in line with his late career philosophy about the future of humanity. Geordi wasn't meant to be the ship's engineer. He wasn't even meant to be a technical specialist at all. Instead, he was conceived as a kind of emotional and social anchor for the Enterprise D, a junior officer who saw the ship from a more human, less hierarchical perspective, someone who could bridge the gap between command decisions and the lived experience of the crew. It's a fascinating idea. It's also one that, in practice, would have limited both the character and the show. While I genuinely like Roddenberry's original plan for Geordi, I'm ultimately glad The Next Generation changed LaForge's role, because the version of Geordi we got became one of the most quietly important characters in Star Trek history. Roddenberry's ideal: Geordi as the everyman of the Enterprise. In early development materials for The Next Generation, Geordi LaForge was positioned less as a technical wizard and more as an observer. He served as the ship's helmsman in the first season, but even that was secondary to his narrative purpose. Geordi was meant to be approachable, empathetic, and socially connected in a way that contrasted with Picard's formality, Data's literalism, and Riker's command confidence. Roddenberry imagined Geordi as someone audiences could relate to most easily. He was younger, lower ranking, and more likely to comment, sometimes implicitly, on the strange, dangerous, or morally complicated situations the Enterprise encountered. In a sense, he was supposed to be the audience surrogate, the guy who asked the questions viewers might be asking at home. This aligned perfectly with Roddenberry's belief that the future had moved beyond internal conflict and professional rivalry. Geordi wasn't supposed to struggle for status or authority. His importance came from perspective, not power. As a blind character using the visor to perceive the universe in ways no one else could, he was already a symbol of Star Trek's optimism. Disability not as limitation, but as difference. On paper, it's elegant. In practice, it was restrictive. The problem with the original plan: the biggest issue with Roddenberry's plan for Geordi wasn't philosophical, it was dramatic. Television thrives on characters who do things, who make decisions, who solve problems. The observer role works well in short bursts, but it's hard to sustain over 7 seasons without turning the character into narrative wallpaper. In Season 1, this limitation is obvious. As helmsman, Geordi pilots the ship competently, but rarely drives the plot. When crises erupt, attention naturally shifts to Picard, Riker, Data, or whoever happens to be in engineering. Geordi is present, likable, and charming, but often peripheral. LeVar Burton does everything he can with the material. His warmth and sincerity shine through even when the scripts give him little to work with. Still, you can feel the show struggling to figure out why Geordi is there beyond thematic intention. Roddenberry's version of Geordi also risked redundancy. The Next Generation already had multiple characters designed to explore humanity from different angles. Picard represented enlightened leadership. Data embodied the quest to understand emotion. Troy was literally there to articulate feelings. In that lineup, Geordi as an emotional everyman didn't have a clear, unique lane. The show needed to give him one. The pivot: making Geordi chief engineer. The decision to move Geordi into engineering, eventually promoting him to chief engineer in Season 2, was one of the smartest quiet course corrections The Next Generation ever made. Suddenly, Geordi wasn't just reacting to the story. He was shaping it. Engineering became the beating heart of the Enterprise D, and Geordi became the person responsible for keeping that heart alive. Warp core breaches, power failures, experimental modifications, impossible demands from the captain. These weren't abstract problems anymore. They were Geordi's problems. This shift gave him authority without turning him into a typical authoritarian figure. Geordi wasn't a barking commander like some fictional engineers. He led through collaboration, patience, and trust. His style of leadership fits Star Trek's utopian ideals far better than Roddenberry's original passive concept ever could. Most importantly, It gave him narrative agency. When Geordi spoke, it mattered. When he disagreed with Picard, it carried weight. When he took risks, the ship, and everyone on it, felt the consequences. Engineering as character definition. By making Geordi chief engineer, the next generation didn't abandon Roddenberry's ideals. It refined them. Geordi's optimism didn't disappear, it became practical. He believed problems could be solved, systems could be fixed, and people could work together to overcome seemingly impossible odds. That's Roddenberry's philosophy, translated into action. Engineering also allowed the show to explore Geordi's intelligence in a way the original plan never could. He wasn't just competent, he was brilliant. Episodes repeatedly establish him as one of,